Yo, what the hell's up everyone? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Horse Girl on Netflix. Horse Girl is a movie about a very socially awkward girl who really digs horses, and she starts to have a lot of lucid, really weird dreams, starts to sleepwalk, and she starts to attribute that to alien involvement. Quick little housekeeping update on why I'm doing a Netflix review right now is because, well, every movie coming out in the foreseeable future seems to be getting pushed back because of coronavirus. It is a bummer. So instead of taking my foot off the gas pedal as I've just started doing these video reviews, and I don't want to stop now, I want to keep momentum moving forward, so I'm going to find new ways to review movies every week. So what I'm going to do for now is at least look and see what Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, what all these streaming services that I'm subscribed to have to offer as far as original movie content that are released in 2020. I want to make sure everything I'm reviewing is at least somewhat current and can be added to either the best and or worst of 2020 at the end of the year if they earn a spot in their each respective area. Yeah, it's not as exciting as reviewing new stuff coming out in theaters, but it's something. Alright, bear with me people, we'll get through this. So why am I starting with this one in particular to kick things off? Good question. Well, the first point was the poster for this film on my Netflix queue really grabbed my attention. That weird little profile, weird optical illusion thing going on. I was like, well, that's weird. And then I watched the trailer, and the trailer actually looked somewhat interesting. Although, I was a little off-put by the fact that it featured aliens. I never really liked aliens being used as plot devices because it's basically like the ultimate ex machina, the license for a filmmaker to do whatever the hell they want and get away with it because aliens, bro. I mean, it just seems like a cop-out to me. Nevertheless, this seemed like maybe the type of movie that would show a new light to it, maybe prove me wrong, and I was ready for it to do so. The pros start with Alison Brie's performance as the title character, the Horse Girl. She had to bring her A game in order to make this work, and she did. As the socially awkward person and the bat crazy person, she did both of those very well. Another thing I have to give a little bit of praise to is the soundtrack. This is a very original and bold take at a soundtrack. This is unlike anything you've really heard before in a movie, and I gotta give it praise for that. A lot of the time, it worked. Not always, but we'll get to that later. And just in general, this was a competently made film. It had a lot of really great cinematography, some great visuals, visual storytelling, and it just kept me engaged throughout the whole thing. I was genuinely curious to see what was going to happen and what all of this buildup was going to amount to. I was never bored checking my watch or anything. I was engaged, which is something, I gotta give it that. This was a very original and interesting film. However, I have a pretty hefty list of cons, unfortunately. The first being just some really awkward, cringe-worthy dialogue. I mean, I get that Alison Brie's character is supposed to be awkward, but what's the excuse for all these other characters that are quote-unquote normal? No one talks like all these characters, but they're talking in the most inorganic way that just was not convincing in the slightest. It had a lot of weak, awkward, soft attempts at humor that just didn't land, and it was just like, what the hell? And a lot of the characters were just super inconsistent from scene to scene. I mean, in one scene they'd be thinking one way, then the very next scene they'd approach that very same scenario in a completely different light. And it was impossible to get a beat on any of the characters because they just didn't remain consistent. Another con was all the music that I didn't like about the soundtrack. I liked a lot of it, but then all the other stuff that didn't exactly get me was just completely bonkers. Like, I don't even know how to even begin explaining the soundtrack for this movie, but it was very strange. I applaud it for being different, but some of the different was too freaking different. And finally, the grand finale of cons was the narrative. While I was very engaged throughout the entire thing, it did not add up to anything that made any remote sense. This movie is just so far out there, and I think it just needed to come back to earth just a little bit so we had any remote idea of what the hell we just watched. It leaves so many unanswered questions and loose threads that you just can't walk away from this movie feeling satisfied. Speaking of the word loose, grammar police here, Alison Brie goes on a big Google search at one point because, well, exposition, and she goes to a website to try and find answers for her symptoms, and one of them is meant to write losing, and it writes loosing, L-O-O-S. I don't know if that was intentional or what, but I just have to point that out. Like, what? A spelling error? How does that make the final cut of this movie? It's meant to be ironic, Jake. Shut up! All in all, this is a very original, ambitious movie with a lot to like, but unfortunately, just a little bit more to dislike, at least upon the first viewing. I'm going to give Horse Girl a C+. I emphasize the fact that I said first viewing because I am genuinely curious to see how this movie would mature, maybe more materialize, be better understood upon future viewings. I can't help but draw parallels to Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko, the first time I watched it, I'm like, what the hell did I just watch? It's such a far out movie that literally the director's cut of it has to have like full screen infographics to try and break down time travel to all of us commoners. And the more times you watch it, the more you understand it, and then you actually start to appreciate it. It actually became kind of a cult classic film. But at first, no one frickin' liked it. This movie similarly dives into really deep, complex concepts and tries to break it down for us, but we aren't meant to get all of it in one viewing. Maybe this is a movie that kind of equally becomes a cult classic and prompts a lot more film study and analyzing to try and understand what they were trying to accomplish here. But honestly, I don't really want to sit down and watch this movie again, if I'm being honest, like I did with Donnie Darko. Why? Because, well, aliens, bro. Look at that, we've gone full circle. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on new reviews coming real soon. Thanks for checking in.